Dear,
he's good.
That could
Right.
be it.
Okay. And we'll go now. Hello and welcome to this Ibrox. It's your Rangers podcast. It's Scott Patterson bringing you another of our My Rangers 11 series. If you've been following us on the socials, you'll be very aware that we've had Crawford Hume and last week my co-pod host, Craig Dennett, stepped up and gave us his 11, which was interesting to say the least, and did, as you've probably seen on the social media, leave me speechless for about 30 seconds, which I found quite hard to believe, as did my extended family. Joining me on the feature this week is Andrew Anderson. Hi Andrew, how are you?
Very well indeed, Scott. Very well indeed. Looking forward to this. It's been an emotional week or so planning my team, but I've got it kind of nailed down now. So looking forward to going through it.
So in the first instance, thanks for joining us. But to give you the viewers and the listeners an idea of just how difficult this is, how hard did you find it selecting your top 11?
I found it that hard. I've not done it yet. I have the crux of the team there, and I think I know exactly who I'm going to pick. To be honest with you, I'm saying that tongue in cheek, but extremely hard. It's when you sit down and you think about it, and you kind of get it in your head, the team you've got,
yep.
And then you're driving down to the shops and you remember
him.
Yep. How could you forget Trevor Stephen? Things like that. It's things like that. So I found it incredibly hard, but I'm looking forward to it. I think I've got a right good team here.
Good man. So to give everyone the basis of what we're looking for, and for those tuning in, you are being asked to select your greatest ever Rangers 11. The caveat being that they have to be players that you have seen. Now, I think you're similar to age as myself, so I've got an idea of some guys that I'm sure will be in there, but I wouldn't be at all surprised if you throw a few surprises in there. So let's get right into it. Formation, what are you going for?
I'm going 4-3-3.
4-3-3.
I'm going for a 4-3-3 formation. I toyed with the idea of a 4-4-2 because I grew up watching 4-4-2s, but by the way I've picked my favourite players, if you like, it's going to have to be a 4-3-3.
Brilliant. Okay, so not a duo up front.
Kind of, but we'll get there. We'll get there. We'll get to the duo up front. There is a duo up front. It's not a fourth. Do they call it a false nine? These young kids. I don't know what it's called anymore. There's somebody in behind the front too, but we'll get to that. We'll get to that.
Good man. Okay, so let's get on with it. Goalkeeper, who are you going for?
Goalkeeper, we're blessed. We're blessed, Scott. You and I of our era to see some right good goalkeepers. I've seen Chris Woods, I've seen Andy Gorham, I've seen Stefan Klos, I've seen Laurel Varis, and I've seen Alan McGregor. And after massive deliberation, I'm plumping for Alan McGregor. And the reason I'm going for Alan McGregor over Andy Gorham, which I don't think will be overly popular, is two UEFA Cups. It really is as simple as that, albeit he wasn't involved in the semi-final in 2008. His save against Werder Bremen is just a touch of class, an absolute touch of class. And I think, the more I think about it, the more I think I'm right. Last year, going into the Christmas period, the New Year period, we beat Celtic at Ibrox. They had their good 15 minutes at the start of the game. I'm sure we all remember that.
Aye.
And he had that save against Lee Griffiths. He touched onto the post.
Great save.
Didn't even notice he touched onto the post until the replay. Now, I'm not saying it would have happened, but if Celtic had scored that goal, who wouldn't say what would have happened in the rest of the season, the rest of the game or the season? So I'm not saying it was the most pivotal thing that happened that season, but it certainly was pivotal in that game, I think. And it's wee things like that I think Alan McGregor's pipped at that. And the save at, I think it was 2-0. It was before Nkunku scored against Leipzig. He had an absolute wonder save, point blank effort, things like that made me plump for him. Now, that said, I'm an awful one for going out for a pint of a Saturday evening, as is my want. And I'll come in and I'll fire on the Andy Gorham montage happily. And I can shed a tear, especially for what's going on at the moment with Andy Gorham. However, I must go with what I think, and that's Alan McGregor and the sticks.
Listen, I think you're absolutely right. We're really lucky. So I'm 42. You're maybe not far off that, and I think there's definitely a realisation that we have been blessed with a lot of good goalkeepers. You look at Chris Woods and that remarkable run that he had of clean sheets. back in the late 80s. You look at the obvious one is Andy Gorham, more recently Alan McGregor, but I think it's easy to not to almost forget guys like Neil Alexander, who's involved in that run to Manchester, Vaterus, who was one of the best goalkeepers I've seen with the ball at his feet, Stefan Klos, an outstanding goalkeeper. So we have, you're absolutely right, we have been really, really very fortunate with goalkeepers that we've had. I agree with you. McGregor was the guy that I went for as my number one. I think he is now top of the pile as far as Rangers goalkeepers are concerned. And I've no doubt that people before me will even speak about guys like Peter McCloy as being right up there, as they rightfully should be. But for our perspective, I think McGregor is definitely the greatest. So we go to a back four. Give me them right to left, if you don't mind.
Right to left, I've went for James Tavernier.
Yep.
At right back. Now, we've had an abundance of right backs as well. You've got, I was there when Gary Stevens, I was at Ibrox when Gary Stevens was there, albeit not a season ticket holder, so I've never seen that much of him. Fernando Rickson was in with a shout as well, but I'm maybe perhaps letting last season's Europa League run lead me a wee bit here, but I just think the leadership Tavernier showed from winning 55 and going in that run last season, on top of the goals he scored in the Europa League last season, I think he's just got to be my right back. He's a club captain as we speak, and I've slipped him in at right back. I was thinking about Gary Stevens. I look back at Gary Stevens. I know you're a big advocate of Gary Stevens.
Huge.
This is the point in Crawford's podcast that I got to before I crashed the car, and I've not continued to. I've not listened to the rest of it yet, and I've not listened to Craig's. So I don't know if they've picked anybody else, but it was either Gary Stevens, Rickson, or Tav, and after much deliberation, I plugged for Tav.
It's a good call, and I think you're right. I mean, the one thing that Tav has, not the one thing, but the thing that is glaringly obvious just now is his numbers, his stats that back up everything you've just said. As far as I'm concerned, you really can't question them. And he's on the back of a great season of 55, which feels like ages ago now. Last season was, of course, disappointing from a domestic point of view. However, he still came out with a Scottish Cup. He still led the team to a European final. Big things for a Rangers captain. Obviously, you want to win these occasions, of course you do, but to be there, and I think to manage it and lead the players in the manner that he did is quite admirable. Two centre halves, go for it.
Two centre halves. This was a tough one for me, but one of them was tough. Richard Gough. Gough, and he is one of, I'm looking at my sheet now, probably three players that I need to say no more.
Yeah.
You need to say no more when you say Richard Gough, should you?
No.
He's Richard Gough. Absolutely fantastic. Captain, fantastic. 9 in a row club captain.
The king.
Hall of Fame. Yes, 100%. Next to him, it was a toss-up for me, Scott, between big Lorenzo Amoruso and Craig Moore.
Wow. Two really good centre-halves.
Yes, I went for Craig Moore on the fact that I think Craig Moore's harder. It's as simple as that. I loved Lorenzo Amoruso, and I'm a massive 2003 fan. And to score the goal at Hampden before he left to win against Falkirk. Was it against Falkirk? No, it wasn't. Dundee.
Header.
I was at Hampden that day, and I loved Lorenzo Amoruso. I really, really did. But again, I must be honest with myself, and I think Craig Moore was a better centre half.
Yeah, you know,
it was harder.
We've spoke about this before in the pod. The one thing about Craig Moore is that I think he was just a guy that defended. So he wasn't particularly interested in any airs and graces or looking good in the ball. And I'm sure he was technically a really good defender, but he defended. Do you know what I mean? If it was man and ball, it was man and ball. No debate.
Yes.
I'm there to defend. Great defender. Who else is on your list for centre half?
Just Lorenzo. It was a toss-up between Lorenzo Amoruso or Craig Moore. There was a couple in there. I went along the lines of I like Boom Song when he was there. He wasn't there long enough.
Yep.
I loved Majid Bugera.
Yeah.
I loved Majid Bugera, but again, he's not really up to the quality of Lorenzo Amoruso or Craig Moore. That was my main two that I've been thinking about and watching back. And it's amazing when you watch back things you've forgotten, tackles you forgot, headers they've won, places that you shouldn't be putting your head into, and Craig Moore did. And that's exactly why he had to be my number one pick next to Richard Gough. That's a cracking centre half duo.
I think other ones in there that maybe would be mentioned. You've mentioned obviously Boom Song, Amoruso, Carlos Cuellar. could have been in there.
Queller. Could have been.
Davy Weir.
Davy Weir. We signed him when he was about 74, didn't we? He was fantastic. How could you? I never forgot about Davy Weir, but you're right.
And this talks to the point that we kind of led with. We've been really blessed with knowledge of having good players. Some of the guys that will come on to do this won't have seen Richard Gough play for Rangers, which is a shame.
True. Davy Weir. I mean, look what he done getting to Manchester.
Absolutely.
I remember. Am I right in saying Gary Hooper was playing for Celtic, who was rapid, and Davy Weir marshalled him.
He did
more than excellently. So no, you're right. Davy Weir is up there too, but no, I need to stick with Gough and Moore.
Absolutely. So we're back down to left back now. Listen, we don't have a lot of options as far as left back. I found left back really hard to do. I've got an idea of maybe a couple of guys that you'll have on your list. Don't know who you'll pick though.
I liked Michael Ball. I did like Michael Ball. I'm not picking Michael Ball.
You're not picking
I liked Michael Ball. I went to play left back from up front when we had a bit of an opening in the team. A few folk left, and I had to go and play left back. And I kind of modelled myself in Michael Ball. And I sit in the East Enclosure, so of course I've seen a lot of Michael Ball.
Yes.
And I loved him. I love Sasa Papac as well. Yeah. But I'm going for Arthur Newman.
Yeah.
I'm going for Arthur Newman. I bought into the Dutch massively when they all arrived.
Yep.
And that goal versus Celtic. I think that 2001 or 2002, was it?
Cracker, wasn't it?
Oh, an absolute peach of a goal. And he was, if you like, he would fit the modern game at the moment. Now the runs he made with the ball at his feet are testament to what happens nowadays from fullbacks, what you're asking fullbacks to do these days.
Absolutely.
I just loved Arthur Newman. And what a guy, he still loves the club. He's still there and thereabouts.
Aye.
He'll get back any time he possibly can. So I've plumped for Arthur Newman on that one. I looked at David Robertson as well. But I don't remember as much of him as I would probably have liked to have done from the early 90s. But it's got to be Newman for me.
Yeah, I think the only difference I think we had in our back four, and including Mcgregor, by the way, was I had Gary Stevens at right back.
Right.
But I agree with everything else you've went. Gough and Moore, really solid partnership there if they were to play together. And Newman at left back. He's certainly the best left back I've ever seen play for Rangers. I thought he was excellent, and I was blessed with guys like Stuart Monroe for a small period of time. The bargain of the century. Stuart Monroe. I think it was a bag of KP nuts and a tin of stout or something like that. It's incredible. So we're going with three across the middle, but your back four is Tav, Gough, Moore, and Newman. Decent back line, I have to say. So we're playing with three adjacent to each other. We're playing with one holding and two advanced.
No, we're playing with one holder and two advanced. I feel I should quantify it to an extent that. No, I won't quantify it. I'll tell you my players first, and then I'll tell you why. I've really struggled with my midfield, Scott. I'll be honest with you. Barry Ferguson.
Holding.
Barry Ferguson is the holding midfield player. If Ali McCoist didn't exist, he would probably be my favourite Ranger. It's as simple as that. Love Barry Ferguson. I was heartbroken when he left. Absolutely heartbroken. And I loved when he came back. And when you think of how good he was so young for us, and they built a team round about him, and that team excelled beyond God knows what. And then when he went away, you think of how many managers have made him captain. You had Advocat, McLeish, Souness, Burley for Scotland. So many. Walter Smith, Paul Le Guen. Did Paul Le Guen make him captain? I think he did for a while.
For a wee while, aye.
So all these managers can't be wrong. He was one of the best Scottish midfielders, if not the best Scottish midfielder I've ever seen play football. And I love the guy. So he's sitting in front of the back four for me.
It's amazing that when you refer to Souness was actually in my team. But Souness, of course, with an opportunity to manage Ferguson at... I'm sure he managed him at Blackburn. And he's obviously managed Derek Ferguson at Rangers as well. So he's managed both the Ferguson brothers at different times in their career. I'd be interested to know, one-on-one, you know what I mean, Graham, who was the best out the pair of them. I think everything you read would suggest that Derek Ferguson was equally as gifted as Barry, but maybe got his head turned a wee bit more than Barry did when he was
I think so.
When he was growing up. Who else would you had as an option for holding midfield, out of curiosity?
Well, you see, this is where I didn't really want to go down the line. I was, my first game, I think, was 1987 or 1988 at Ibrox, so you could technically argue that I've seen players since then.
Okay.
But I didn't want to go down that line because I was only so young, and I didn't really start going regular till mid-90s, really.
Yeah.
I suppose I got my first season ticket in 98, I think it was. Ray Wilkins. I was thinking along how I loved Ray Wilkins, and who doesn't love Ray Wilkins? But I never seen enough of him, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
To have him in there, but nobody can touch Barry, in my opinion. And we'll get to the forward midfielders in a wee minute, and there's more of them than I care to imagine talking about here, to be honest with you. But
I think you're absolutely right. I actually found doing the midfield really, really difficult because there's some. There's people that'll be screaming some obvious contenders to play in year 3 or year 4, whatever it is you're going for. But the minute you start to maybe go a bit more attacking and you go down to 3 in the midfield, your options suddenly shrink as to who you can put in there. And there's loads of them. Barry Ferguson, Souness, Wilkins, Ian Ferguson, Paul Gascoigne, Alberts. Do you know what I mean? Guys like Jonas Tern, 2 guy. That's you up to 8 straight away.
I've got them here. I've got them written down here.
Very difficult. So you've got 2 sitting ahead of Barry Ferguson. Who are they?
The 2 I've got sitting ahead of Barry Ferguson are Paul Gascoigne and George Alberts.
Oh, yes.
Now, I spoke in the WhatsApp group earlier on, and I was trying my very best to find a place for Ian Ferguson.
Yeah.
Now, do you remember Ian Ferguson's goal in the Skull Cup final?
For St Mirren?
No, for Rangers against Aberdeen.
Yes, I do.
It was a kind of a volley, stroke, scissor kick, stroke, overhead kick. Now, I tried to do that all through the 90s when I was playing over the park with my friends. I was always Ian Ferguson, and I always wanted to try and score that goal. And I tried my best to get him in there. And he is a fantastic player and a true Ranger, is what Ian Ferguson is.
Absolutely.
But I have to go with what I believe is right, and Paul Gascoigne and George Alberts. Paul Gascoigne, the same as Richard Gough. I need to say no more.
Yeah, an absolute genius. No more. A genius. A
genius of a guy, even in Euro 96 for England. Absolutely fantastic. And George Alberts, I mean, geez, some of the strikes and the free kicks that he had was absolutely fine. I was lucky enough to meet him. Right. He had a very good friend who lived in Balloch, just down the road from where I stay now, but not at the time. And he had a few pints in the Doghouse bar in Balloch one evening. Smoked like an absolute chimney, to George Alberts. And what an absolutely lovely, lovely guy. Was lucky enough to spend maybe 10, 15 minutes in his company. And he's got to be in my team, Scott. He's absolutely fantastic.
Do you know the thing I've often thought about Alberts is that when you think about him, because that thunder bastard of a strike that he had was always the difference in quite a lot of occasions. But technically, he was actually a really good footballer. I actually felt he was technically better than he was ever given real true credit for. And he was always someone, I think, for his set piece ability, you would want him in there. I remember the cross that he had for Gascoigne in the 2-0 victory over Celtic Park at Ibrox when Gaz had his hair bleached blonde, one of the greatest Old Firm goals I've ever seen.
Yes.
And he was he just moved about like a Rolls Royce, wasn't particularly fast, but had really fast presence of mind. And I think that at that time made him stand out from maybe some of the other guys in the midfield, because he was maybe just that little bit smarter without being quicker. You know,
you could see that a mile away. You could see it an absolute mile away. And to have him in my team, you're leaving out some amazing players as well. You're leaving out, I'm looking at my list here, Scott, you've got Arteta, Gattuso, Trevor Stevens, Stephen Davis. You're missing. These are absolute Rangers legends in some of them are legends, some of them, that word's used too much in my opinion, but some of them are Rangers legends. So to have Gascoigne and Alberts in there shows you how highly I rate them. And rightly so, I think. I can't be the only 40-year-old who's got they two in my midfield three, I'll tell you.
Do you know what I said to Craig Dennett when we did his select last week? I said, can you imagine if we had Rino Gattuso and Barry Ferguson playing centre mid at the same time? Now, if you remember right, Advocat kind of used Gattuso almost as a right wing back, much to his disgust more often than not. And I know that you could argue the Rino Gattuso we had was not the same Rino Gattuso that finished his career at places like AC Milan. However, a bit of perseverance, him and Barry Ferguson in the middle of the park would have been a sight to behold. And listen, you look at Paul Gascoigne, and I say genius, and there's probably not a word that's been thrown out there yet that really does any justice to just what a good footballer Paul Gascoigne is.
Totally agree.
And Yeah, I mean, when you look back some of the footage of Gascoigne, that hat-trick against Aberdeen on the last day of the season, to get 8 in a row, the emotion that he felt at Tannadice after we got 9 in a row. Do you know, the one thing I like about Gascoigne is something that's held off the park, the closeness that he developed with Walter Smith. I think something that's often forgotten about. Paul Gascoigne has said previously that he developed a really good relationship with Terry Venables, almost like a fatherhood relationship. Yes. And I think that maybe the next person he had something similar with would have been Walter Smith. And I think Walter kind of took him under his arm when he was there, and it was nice to see, because there was times when Gaza was with us that he did need to be given a wee bit of cuddle and sort of maybe hugged into line a little bit. But listen, that's some midfield. Barry Ferguson sitting with Gascoigne and Alberts up front. Good balance. I like it.
That's it. What I will say, just for FYI, I suppose, if I was going 4-4-2, my midfield would be a right winger who we'll get to shortly.
Okay.
Paul Gascoigne, Barry Ferguson, and Peter Hoostra.
Peter Hoostra.
Absolutely loved Peter Hoostra.
What a player he was.
He was a fantastic player, an old school winger. And let's not kid ourselves on, Scott. Wingers have bad games. He had bad games. David Cooper had bad games, for goodness sake. But more often than not, that guy was on the money. And I really loved him when I was growing up. I was always Peter Hoostra or Ian Ferguson. So if I was going for a 4 along the middle, unfortunately, George Alberts would have had to drop out, and it would be a right winger who will remain nameless because he's in my front three. Barry Ferguson, Paul Gascoigne, and Peter Hoostra. That's just FYI.
Do you know, we've actually spoke to Hoostra on the pod before, and he still holds his time at Rangers really, really fondly. He loved playing at the club. I think probably a wee bit disappointed how it ended, to be perfectly honest with you. When we spoke to him, he was quite adamant that it was very quick. He was suddenly playing against, I'm sure it was Falkirk, just along the road to me. He played that night at Brockville, and then I think the following day he was away to Japan. And that was it. And he just disappeared. But certainly a player who really thoroughly enjoyed his time at Rangers. Good shout, so really good shout. Easily forgotten, and that's why we do this, because you do come across players that you think, geez, I forgot about him.
I remembered about Peter Hoostra. I was driving down for the Chinese the other night. Gospel truth.
It's funny you say, I mean, you even refer to Trevor Stephen, and just technically an incredible footballer.
Fantastic.
You know what I mean? Went to Marseille, who we say very little about for all the obvious reasons, and then we were lucky enough to get him back. But Trevor Stephen was a wonderful footballer, really, really good footballer.
Fantastic.
And again, it speaks to your point about being spoilt for choice across the centre of the park. So we're going for 3 up top, not a duo. You're going to need to explain this to me properly.
I'm going to put quite possibly the best football player I've ever seen at Ibrox in behind the front two.
Okay.
And that's Brian Ledrick. He's another one. I feel I need to say no more.
Yep.
However, I will. He's absolutely fantastic. What a player. What an absolute diamond of a player. And loved Rangers.
Yeah.
He was an athlete. He was a gentleman. And oh my God, what a wonderful player. And I still class myself as very, very, very lucky to have seen him play football live.
Yeah.
That's how good I think that guy was.
Do you know that way, people who are older than us, so maybe people that are maybe 20 years older than us, I'll refer to guys like Jim Baxter as being something incredibly special. And do you know what I mean? Well, sure he was. He was our Jim Baxter, if you like. Do you know what I mean? And I'm not comparing them both. Do you know what I mean? But I think age groups idolise players of certain teams. There was something different about Brian Ledrick when you saw it. He was more than an idol. He was something you'd never seen before.
Yes.
And I don't know, almost bizarrely enough, you remember watching him and say, I don't think we'll ever see a footballer like this guy again. And that was 20 years ago. And we've not.
Yep, and we've not. And will we? How much would it cost nowadays, Scott, to buy that?
Exactly. And he had the lot. He had the absolute lot. He had the height. He had the physique. He had the pace.
Yes.
I think if you believe some of the stories that you read now that he's retired, he had that aggression that maybe you never ever saw that often on the football pitch. But I think he had it because you read about spats that he had in the changing room with guys like Andy Gorham, McCoist. but because he never came across that aggressive way on the pitch, you often thought, oh, he's a bit of a soft touch. But we were wrong to think that. He was an incredible footballer.
And what I like as well, Scott, I like the fact that was it his only header? Was it his only headed goal? I don't think it was his only one, was it?
Well, I certainly can't remember him scoring another header.
Either can I off the top of my head, but I wonder if it's his only one. But to win, to clinch 9 in a row, listen, that brings you into legendary status already. But you tie that in with the guy's ability, he's got to be in my team. So he's sitting right behind my front two.
I mean, there's so many moments about Ledrick that I think you can look back on. The header at Tannadice to get 9 in a row. The goal he scored at Celtic Park when we were down to 10 men after Davy Robertson got sent off.
Yes.
The Scottish Cup final when Gordon Durie kept scoring and he still never got man of the match.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
I remember him scoring a wonderful chipped goal from the touchline against Aberdeen at Ibrox, and it was entirely intentional. Yep. It was incredible to go and watch and see. It was absolutely brilliant to go and see. Magical, sounds like your furry friend in the background agrees, which is nice.
Somebody just came in.
Let's listen. We've got another two, but they're not. I'm getting the impression they're maybe not a duo, or maybe they are. The floor is yours. You can tell me what they are.
No, they're very much a duo. I think they're possibly Rangers Football Club's most iconic duo, and that's McCoist and Hateley.
Yep.
Now, I've got a list here, Scott, the length of my arm. We'll go through it, will we? Do you have 5-10 minutes?
Go for it. You go on.
I'm only kidding you on, but it's got to be McCoist and Hateley, but I've got written down here, and if I could get them all in, I would. Moles, De Boer, Jelavic, Purcell, Boyd, Morelos.
Yep.
You've got all these players who are the quality in that list of players I've just said there, but it's got to be McCoist and Hateley.
Yeah.
It's got to be McCoist and Hateley. Ali McCoist needs to say no more. He's Mr. Rangers. Loves the club. All-time record goal scorer. And you've got Mark Hateley beside him, who I was also lucky enough to meet quite regularly, actually. He had a few meals in the local hotel where I stayed in the small village of Gattercarn. Him and Walter Smith dined there many an evening. And I met him a good few times. Did I meet Mark Hateley? A lovely guy. And I'll just never forget his goals against Leeds, the 2 against Aberdeen. Was it 3 in a row or 4 in a row against Aberdeen? 3 in a row, I believe. Do you
know one thing I can remember about that is that Aberdeen started that game with a guy in goal called Michael Watt, and he was a really, really young guy. And the first ball that came over, Hateley just about killed him when he went into challenge him. And the ironic thing is, it shows you how the game's changed, because in those days, Mark Hateley had a ball with challenging goalkeepers to get balls when crosses were coming in. Whereas if it was happening now, 9 times out of 10 it would be a foul against them. Do you know what I mean? Pressure over.
It would. He was just a big battling ram is what he was.
Aye.
He was put there for a reason, and it worked. Him and McCoy's just absolutely fantastic together. His goal against Marseille, Leeds, as I said. But the one that I remember the most is Aberdeen. I think it was 3 in a row, because I watched that video almost daily. Remember the videos came out?
Aye.
Back when videos were a thing, Scott?
Yes, I remember it well.
So I watched between my 2 most watched videos out my Rangers library were that with 3 in a row, I think it was, and Super Ali. So my front 2 is McCoist and Hateley.
Do you know, I think as far as Hateley's concerned as well, I think it speaks to the point about how huge Rangers were, and the pull of the club when Rangers were able to go and bring him in from AC Milan as well. Actually, was it AC Milan or was it Monaco?
Monaco, was it not?
Monaco it was, you're absolutely right. But I think to bring him in with the background that he had was just, it was a huge deal. It was an absolutely massive deal. And yes, again, do you know what I mean? Huge moments in our history, the double against Aberdeen. And the relationship he had with McCoist, I think you're absolutely right. I don't think it's anything we'll ever see again. It was the traditional. I don't even know if it was a traditional little and large, because I don't think McCoist was overly small. McCoist scored his fair share of headers.
He did. I totally agree with you.
He was a very good header of the ball. But they were a fantastic duo. And again,
I don't think there's a bigger legend, and you don't use that word lightly, than Ali McCoist.
No, there isn't.
There is not a bigger Rangers legend than Ali McCoist, and that I know of anyway. you've got John Gregg, of course, you've got John Gregg, but I didn't see John Gregg play football.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Ali McCoist for me, I'll always love the guy. I probably struggle to put the words just how much I love Ali McCoist.
Yeah,
he's just the best guy ever, and I loved more than anything the camera angle from behind the kind of the stand. The BT, yes, that's what I'm looking for. When he was celebrating after Leipzig last year.
Aye.
That's one of the first ones when I scroll back all my bookmarks. That's one of the first ones I watch. Is McCoist's reaction, because that was fantastic.
And you know that way, I think so. McCoist was in Dennett's team, and we should say that one of the things I said to Craig when we recorded was, I don't think there was ever a Rangers manager that I wanted to succeed more than Ali McCoist.
Definitely.
And he was dealt such a crappy hand through no fault of his own. I don't think anyone will really ever understand or know what happened then, or how good a manager Ali McCoist would have been for Rangers. Because he was so hamstrung with things that were going on, probably things that we'll never know about. But listen, that is a cracking lineup. You've got, Andrew, I'll run through it again. You've got Alan McGregor in goals, James Tavernier at right back, Richard Gough, Craig Moore and Arthur Newman at left back, Barry Ferguson holding, Paul Gascoigne and George Alberts. Ledrick can do as he pleases in front of all these guys, supplying the ammunition for Ali McCoist and Mark Haley. That's a cracking team. That's a really good team. It really is. And I mean, when you're reading out the team, when I've done this so far with Crawford and Craig, when I've read back the team, I've thought, gee whiz, I remember watching these guys and all the things they could do. And you try and, I don't know, sometimes you try and put it in comparison to what you watch now. And it's, I think it just speaks to the point about how lucky we've been to see some of the players that we've seen. And we will have guys in the pod who won't have seen these guys. A lot of the guys are pointing towards Rhys Cochrane's lineup, which I think will have a few surprises in there, but he would have the luxury of seeing some of these guys. So as we do with everyone, Andrew, as we get towards the end of your selection, we ask you to pick a captain, and there's a few in there. So that's a tough call. I mean, you've got existing captain of 55, Richard Gough, the captain's captain. Barry Ferguson, the most successful captain, I would argue, of our watching Rangers lifetime. Arthur Newman, I'm sure has captained Holland in the past. The five ahead, Gascoigne, Alberts, Ledrick, McCoist and Haley, I don't think you would have them as a captain, but you could certainly trust the five behind. Who are you picking as your man to lead them out?
I would love to say Barry Ferguson, because the way I love the guy, but I'm picking Richard Gough as my club captain.
Yeah.
How could you not? The 9 in a row captain, Mr. Rangers, Richard Gough. He's my club captain. Yeah,
and I mean, it's true what you say. You see him back and forth at Ibrox even now, and he's in around corporate events. And listen, he just represents the club so well.
He does.
He's a wonderful ambassador for our football club, and I think to do half the things that Richard Gough has done in his career, and to continue coming back to Rangers to promote the club in the manner that he does, and just sort of present himself in the fashion that he does, is a huge deal for the support, because we know he's always
he's a true Ranger.
Yeah,
he's a true Ranger. He epitomises everything we stand for in the club. Does Richard Gough, and he's got to be my captain, Scott. As I say, I love Barry Ferguson, and he's the second choice for me for a captain there. But that's how highly I think of Richard Gough.
Good call. So listen, that's a good 11. No regrets?
No regrets. But as I said to you before we started doing this, the names we've rhymed off that aren't in that 11 just shows you. It just shows you, you know. So no, I'm happy with it. It's a good winning team, and that's the team I'll live with. Like every other manager, I'll live and die with that team. Every other manager.
Andrew, thanks for coming on. I enjoyed doing your select, buddy. Thanks very much.
Anytime at all. Enjoyed it.
So don't forget to check this out. Leave a comment and like and subscribe to our channel across at YouTube. We've got the Sunday pods that are going out live now. We've got the bulletins that are going out Monday to Friday as well. Don't forget to check us out. You're more than welcome to weeknights from 7 and every Sunday at 8. Put your toggle on so that you get a wee note every time we start. Be sure to check us out. It's good entertainment, they tell me. Thanks again for watching. Bye-bye.